Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to try to show you how I create a foiling liquid. And usually what I do is start by using some just plain old eye drops, nothing fancy. These are like $1.44 or something like that at Target. So I have a bottle of this, and I like this because you can really control the amount of liquid that comes out. And normally what I do is put 3 drops spaced far enough from each other that you won't run into the next one if you or automatically, you know, you're not going to be, you have a little space to mix things up. So what I'm going to use is a little bit of Kudos and to demonstrate this. So I have my 3 drops there, and normally what I'll do is I'll just tap a little bit of the minerals over the dot or near the dot. Now I actually kind of got a lot on there right now. I'll just leave this open. And I'll do it with a wet dry brush, since probably a lot of you have this brush, but you could also do it with the Target brush. So what I'm going to do is just, I kind of try to hold it still, and then I'll, with a dry brush, mix it. Now this is actually helpful because what you can see here, and hopefully can get in a little closer here, is that the mixture is too thick. It kind of makes little lines or, you know, beads up like that. So that'll show you that it's too thick. I'm going to try to make it too thin now. Here, I'll just put a little drop in there so that you can see what it looks like. And if it's too thick, then when you put it on your eye, you're going to end up, you know, with something that's just really heavy, or, you know, you'll even sometimes get the little kind of lumps on there. Okay, so now I added a bunch more water to it, and, well, we'll just leave part of it. You can see that it's watery, and you can even see that there's like some watery bits like that. Now, sometimes if it's just a little bit too thin, you can just leave it and it'll kind of dry out just a little bit. So if you just wait a minute, it'll turn into the right consistency, and that'll be fine. But if it's still too thin, and one way you can tell that it's too thin is if you tap it on here and it kind of leaves behind little almost droplets of watery foiling liquid. So if you need a little bit more, sometimes what I'll do is just take the minerals and I'll dip the tip of the brush into them. Now I usually don't get that much on there, just a little bit to use up the rest of the water. Now I had a little extra minerals over there, and I've let it sit for a couple of seconds, so now it's about the right consistency. It looks a little thick on the brush, so if it's a little thick on the brush like that from mixing, just kind of tap it in the next drop over. You don't want to use the entire drop. See, I've made it a little too thin now, again, because I tapped the drop too much. But sometimes you can just sort of touch it very lightly with the brush. But I have the right consistency over here, so that's good. And then it should just go on nice and smooth, and not too runny and not too thick. And you get a nice layer. See how thick that was? It's just like too much. So, and then as you go, your brush will kind of lose some of the minerals, and you can blend out the edges of your foiling if you just let the brush kind of dry out a little bit. It's still damp, but you can just blend out. Yeah, just like that. And then it kind of goes from the darker part out. And so that's about how we would do the foiling an eyeshadow. And doing a liner is very similar. Usually what I do, and sometimes I'll even just leave behind, you know, use a drop that I've left behind and just do little small drops on my lid there. And let's see, this is Amethyst. I'll do the same thing, just kind of tap a little bit of minerals over the dot. Now usually with the liner you don't need quite as much because they're very concentrated. And then with the dry brush I'll kind of mix it in there. Mix in the minerals. And it's actually kind of stiffening up here. And since I'm using a dry brush, it's not very flexible, so it could be really hard to use, and that's kind of too thick. So again, I just gently dip the tip into the next dot. Now I didn't use really any of it, and kind of mix it in until it's the right consistency. And then I kind of roll the brush a little bit to make sure I get it on all the sides so it's ready to go. Maybe just a little bit more. And if the brush is too stiff, again, you can kind of dip it in and then kind of like over here loosen up the brush like that. And then just roll it a little bit to so that it keeps its shape, and then go back to the and that's looking just a little too thin, so I think I would add a little bit more liner to that. Sometimes you get these little kind of pills, and that's okay, you just kind of break them up. And you can even kind of roll your brush in the watery bit that you made. And then usually right now it's about the right consistency, and so it should go on nice and smooth, no problems. Can make nice lines with that. And with this brush, when I'm doing my eyes, sometimes like in the inner corner I'll do like little dashes with the point part, and then other times I'll kind of lay it on its side and go out, or leave the pointy side and then come in like that so that I get a little point when I'm lining. And okay, so that's about what you're trying to get is that sort of medium mixture, not too dark, not too light, and hopefully you can get it just right. And like I said, since the eye drops kind of evaporate a little bit, you don't have to have it perfect. You can just let it air dry a little bit and you'll get the right consistency. Thank you for watching.